Hi, everybody. David Paparelli here, co-founder of M-Cultivo, and I want to welcome all of you back to the Cupping Table podcast. Today, we have a really special episode for you. We have Jean Orlowski from Hala Tree Coffee, and he is going to be talking about Kona coffee today. So if you're interested in the resurgence of Kona coffee and the specialty coffee scene, if you're interested in how to build a coffee-producing business from scratch and lead a team that produces excellence day after day, you're going to want to listen to this episode. He's got some great advice for you. Welcome, Jean, and thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So, Jean, I want to start off by asking you a question I ask everyone, which is, what's the best cup of coffee you've had recently?
Probably one of our coffees that I liked. We just released the Marago Jipe this year, so we feel they are very, very good, actually.
So, just for the audience, just to give context to what you guys are working on, what point of harvest are you in Kona? What's going on currently?
Yeah, so in Kona, the seasons, the way it works is that we are usually harvesting between, let's say, July and December. It varies a little bit between the elevation, but that's usually the season. Knowing that the peak of the season is usually like October or November is really where we have the peak of the season. So as of now, we are just preparing, the next season, making sure all the equipment is up and running, and of course working on the field. So as usual, maintaining the trees, making sure everything's clean, and pest control and everything. Yeah.
So I don't know if there's a less busy time for coffee producers, but would this be kind of the quiet season for you? Is that why you're able to do a podcast right now?
Yeah, not anymore, actually. That was the case years ago, especially here in Hawaii. We're on an island in the middle of the Pacific, so we're supposed to be very protected in terms of pests and diseases. Unfortunately, now we have the same as everywhere else. So we have coffee berry borers, we have the coffee leaf rust. And so even what we were calling off season, which was usually like, let's say, February to about June, now we need to spend a lot of time basically maintaining for those pests and diseases, spraying and doing all this work. So there is no really off time. We are not harvesting, let's say, but in terms of work, we have the same volume as of now than during the season or any other time of the year.
And it's really interesting. What's driving the influx in pests and diseases now versus when you started farming coffee? What's been the big shift?
Yeah, we've started. So we came to Hawaii 14 years ago. When we came, it was just the start of the coffee berry borer. Everybody was a little bit, let's say, surprised, and especially for us, and I'm talking mainly for myself here at Hala Tree, I was new in coffee, so I didn't know anything about those pests and diseases. So it was really a surprise. And that's adding a lot of workload overall, because, we need to maintain, we need to know when to spray. So a big learning curve actually for us to manage those pests. How they came here, honestly, I don't know. It's something everybody's trying to find, but we don't know that.
Yeah. Well, so let's maybe take a step back, because I know, not everybody's going to be familiar with Hala Tree. Certainly not everyone will have heard of Kona coffee, but not everyone will have had the pleasure of experiencing it in the same way that you guys are producing it. But would you mind just giving everyone just a quick intro on Hala Tree and just kind of an overview on your operations and everything you have going on in Kona?
Sure. So we've started in 2012. So it's now almost 13 years. We've started with me and my wife. Actually, we bought a small 6-acre farms, and we've learned everything on this traditional Kona coffee farm. Here in Kona, there are about 800 plus farms. small lots usually. The average is about probably between 3 and 5 acres. So that's how we've started. The first 2 years, what we did is that we've learned everything because we didn't know anything about coffee. So we've started our brand. We've learned everything about coffee on that farm, farming, processing, everything. So at the beginning, we didn't even have really a name, but there was a big Hala Tree on the farm, and we had to find a name for the farm. Everybody, is using the name of Kona and the name to have the word of coffee in the name. So we've decided to be called Hala Tree. So we've started with those 6 acres and then we've started to grow. So as of now, we have about 100 acres in production.
Wow.
We are doing everything ourselves. We've started with the traditional farming here in Kona, which is basically growing Kona typica trees, because that's what you will find here in probably, again, I don't know the exact percentage, but probably 80% of the farms are having typicas. When we've decided to grow, we've decided to have different types of trees. So as of now, we have the typica at probably about 60% of our production is typica. And then we have some red bourbon, SL34, geisha, Marago GP. And we're always looking actually for new varietals if we can grow them.
Yeah, this was I remember talking to folks in Hawaii about this, but this is sort of a new event in Kona, correct? These kind of new varietals coming into Kona. I mean, this has happened in other parts of the world. People have been experimenting with processing methods, with varieties, those kinds of things. You guys are newer to that party, it sounds like.
So Kona is changing. So if I even compare it, my time frame here in Kona is relatively short, those 12, 13 years. But even during that time, when we came, it was really, only typical traditional farming with those trees, traditional methods. So usually a wet fermented here in Kona. And over time, that's when, new farmers are also coming, younger people, plus, we are listening to what's happening in the world of coffee. And when we see that something, is new and works, that's, of course, we want to basically try to replicate it here and even enhance it if we can. So over the past, I don't know, maybe 10 years, maybe a little bit less, this traditional Kona is changing. So again, new trees, new method, because we are trying to use all those new methods, being new fermentation, doing some honeys, naturals. That's we're trying to really have all these new things coming. Yeah.
Why do you? I mean, why do you think there was a lag in that? I mean, in that the rest of the coffee world is over the last probably, I don't know, call it 25 years. It's been increasing in experimentation with varieties, increasing in experimentation with processing methods, whereas Kona is sort of just starting to do that over it sounds like the last 5 years. Why was it a geographic kind of distance was the issue? Is you're just farther apart from folks? Was it the age of the average farmer? What was the problem there, or the challenge?
It's a combination, and again, that will be my opinion overall. It's just that Kona has a good reputation in terms of quality and in the coffee, and so it was a little bit complacent because you have something that you can sell easily. You have a commodity that you have no problem. And most of the farmers here in Kona, that's been, you don't keep inventory very long. It's usually going relatively fast. Now in the world of coffee, we have more and more competition. We have very good coffees coming from other regions. So we need also to basically align ourselves to make sure we continue to follow and to be able to compete with all those other regions, other farmers. So that's very important. Plus, as you say, that's been, we have new farmers coming. They want to experiment new things. Plus at the end, we are in the specialty coffee. So in the specialty coffee, you need to be able to provide something new, especially now with young people drinking coffee. They want something new every year. We cannot do that like every month, of course, because of the cycle we have in farming. But it's very important for us to bring new coffees, new methods, something new to drink every year. So we are keeping, we are staying relevant, in the industry, and that's very important.
Yeah, so I mean, to try and sum that up, it sounds like there was a little bit of it's almost like an innovator dilemma, right? Where Kona had a great brand, high price for off takers, so coffee buyers were buying it at a high price already. So sort of, if it's not broken, why should we fix this, right? Let's just keep producing Typica. Let's keep selling it at a high price. But it seems like there's a catalyst there of a lot of different factors of just the world of specialty coffee changed, but also new blood into Kona trying to, that wants to explore, wants to try new things. But I know you were a businessman before Hala Tree. I mean, there's got to be some market side of that equation that's sort of demanding that you guys shift a little bit. Do you feel that pull in that direction that we kind of have to change and try new things?
Yeah, of course. That's been, again, as I say, there are more and more demand for those specialty coffee that are a little bit different than the traditional Kona. So, we still have a lot of the traditional Kona. As I say, that's our bread and butter a little bit that we need to produce. But it's very important for us, again, to have all those other, again, processing trees that, all those other specialties, I would say. Also to showcase, it's also a lot of marketing behind, it's very important for us to have those products to show that basically we have a good coffee in all our panels of, we have 12 plus coffees that we're producing, and we need to show that all of them have something different.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so let's get into that a little bit. So the varieties you have on your farm currently, remind me, which varieties do you have?
So we have, of course, the Typica. That's about 60%. We have red bourbons. We have SL34. We have Geisha. We have Marago GP. And again, we're trying to add some when we can.
So let's talk about Geisha really quick, because I know people are going to want to hear about this. How did Geisha get to Kona? I've heard some rumors about how this has happened, but I'm curious on your version of the story and how kind of Geisha arrived, when it arrived.
Yeah. So, and again, I'll give you more my story because I probably don't know the history, and there was probably some geisha before we did that. So I don't know. Again, I don't want to enter in those discussions. But for us, so again, that's been one producer brought the geisha through the official channel, which is quite complicated here in Hawaii because you need to go through the quarantine and everything. Have all the paperwork. The quarantine is 1 year. So you have those trees basically. You plant them in a quarantine facility and you need to maintain them for 1 year. So a producer brought that. We bought some trees from him. So we started with about 500 trees. That was probably about 6 years ago, if I remember. And now we have probably about 2 acres planted. So we probably have about 2,000 plus trees planted. That's how we've started on our side.
Where'd the geisha come from? Like, where did it come from? A seed bank, or does it come from?
Yeah. So they came from Panama. Again, the farmer brought them officially, and so we've started with those trees, and they are doing very well here, actually.
Yeah. I mean, I tried the SL34. That was another one where I think there was some confusion on whether it was SL34 or another SL.
Yes. So when it started here, or at least again for us, when we bought them, they were sold to us as SL28. And we kept the name SL28 for some times, probably a few years. And then a farmer did a test, sent it to the laboratory for test, and it was discovered that it was an SL34. So we had to change the names, and so it is an SL34.
Okay. And that seems to be doing what, so what's your best performing varieties now in terms of, I guess there'd be kind of a couple different variables, but there'd be quality, right? And then there'd be sort of a volume metric in there. But what would you say is your best performing varieties?
Well, again, here in Kona, I would say all of them are, in terms of volume, they're all performing relatively well. We have good success with Geisha, actually, surprisingly, because, well, it's not supposed to produce like a lot, but it's producing more than the typical, at least for us. The SL34 is producing very well, so it's probably one of the best producer we have. And in terms of quality also, I would say, of course, Geisha, very good quality, very good cupping. That's probably the best we have. But the SL34, it comes very, very close behind.
And I'm not a coffee farmer myself, but I know a little bit about Geisha performs better under some stress, right? I mean, that's where the altitude comes in, right? To provide a little bit more stress on the Geisha plant. You guys have this unique situation where, high altitude is thought in a completely different paradigm than other places. So, I mean, can you tell us a little bit about kind of the altitude of your farm and kind of that, I guess, call it that
Yeah.
terroir that
Yeah.
that makes those plants successful?
Our fields are all between 1,500 and 2,000 feet. Here in Kona, usually you're growing coffee between, let's say, 800 and about 2,500 plus. But the higher you're going, actually everything's growing slower here, at least here in Kona. So 15 to 2,000 is really where you want to be. When you go too low, you start to have problems with water. Basically, you need irrigation. So you have other issues that you need to cope with. So usually when you stay within this elevation, you have actually the perfect environment. We have the perfect rain usually coming in the afternoon during the rainy season, and that works very well for the trees.
And that's yeah. So that's just to do the conversion. That's about 500 meters to 800
Yeah,
meters,
about.
roughly.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
and you got your farm lives in that. Is it all one farm? Is it all 100 acres one farm, or is it broken up into different farms
No, so
across Kona?
we have multiple fields. So we've started with those 6 acres. So we kept this farm very traditional Kona coffee trees that are about 100 years old. That's what you will find here in Kona. And then when we started to grow, we bought another 20 acres, then another 21. So now we have 40 acres that are really in one field. And then we have other fields always in the Kona coffee belt. It's a very small region. It's about 20 miles. And as I say, between 800 and 2,000 or 2,500 feet. So very small regions. We are not producing a lot of coffee here in Kona. We can say it's a very rare coffee just because of the size of the region.
And so you start off with a smaller farm, and then I guess, are you acquiring these other farms? Are you partnering with other farmers to get that land? What is that?
Both.
How do you grow that quickly?
Yeah, so it's again, we are here in the US, we're in Hawaii. The land is very expensive. So
Sure, yeah.
we bought some land, so we own 46 acres, and the rest we're partnering with other farmers. So usually the way we are doing it is that we are managing more or less their farm, and we are working against crops. So basically, it's call that a crop share or something like that.
And are those?
Just to expand a little bit, what's very important for us is to basically not to buy any coffee from anybody else. So basically, we always want to work with basically coffee that we are farming. Because we have our own method, we use the same product, we have the same team, we know how to work on those farms, and so we are making sure it's very important for us to really manage the farm and not to buy any cherries from other farmers. So we keep control. So we have really control from farm to cup.
Yeah, because that's the other portion of your operations too, right? You guys have a coffee shop. Is that a coffee shop and roastery in Kona as well? Is that right?
Yes. Yeah, so we do everything, as I say. So we do the farming, which is everything between, managing the land, the trees. We process, so we have our own facility to process. We have our own roastery, so we roast all our coffees. And we have a coffee shop on Oahu, and we are looking to open a second one very soon.
Wow. So a lot going on. And just out of curiosity, the people that own these farms that you're sort of co-farming with or crop sharing with, are those generally, is it kind of tourists that are interested in kind of owning land in Kona and they want a coffee farm and you kind of help them manage that? Or is it, who are the people that own these
Not at
farms?
all. That's been again people that have invested in land. They are spending time here also, but you know, you need a team. So manpower is also very important. So you need the team. You cannot just do it yourself when you have a 20 acres farm. You need to have a team. You need to have equipment. So basically, you know, for us to come in the picture, we are bringing actually all this experience. We
Yeah.
have a very good team. We have all the equipment to do it. We can share the pickers, the harvesters, because we are harvesting by hand, you know, so it's very intensive in terms of manpower. So it makes sense to share, you know, all this environment overall between different farmers. So no, they are not tourists. They are
Yeah.
real farmers. They are people that are involved in their farm. You know, we're talking to them on a regular basis. They have their inputs. We are working together. When I say we're working, then we're really trying to create a team overall. So we are making the best decision all together.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm sure that's come with some challenges and some experience to kind of structure those deals appropriately. I mean, what are some of your learnings on trying to figure out the right model that works for all these farmers and works for you guys?
Well, you know, it's at the end when you think about it purely in terms of, I would say, business, it's not a bad model because when we work against crop share, you know, we take a percentage, they have a percentage, we usually buy it at the end of the year, so it's a guaranteed check at the end of the year.
Yeah.
So it's not a bad business model, and it's not that complicated to understand that it's a good way actually to have a guaranteed profit.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's something that they might not have a ton of experience in and that you guys do, and you can squeeze efficiencies out. So is it all centralized processing too? Centralized kind of washing station, dry mill, or does each
Yeah,
farm
so
have kind of their own?
we have. Yeah, we have our own facility for that. And so basically we do everything. So we go, we harvest, we take the bags, you know, the cherry bags, we bring them to our mill and we process. Now, when we process, so to talk a little bit about processing at a high level, because I'm sure we'll talk a little bit more details later on,
Yeah.
but we are keeping everything separate. So every farm is basically separate. Every processing method is separate. And we have the mill to do that. So we have, you know, multiple fermentation tanks. We have 7 of them, so we can process 7 different, you know, combination between farms, processing methods the same day.
I mean, I guess that would be a question I have for you, Jean, because you are sort of, there's been a lot of, obviously, Kona's got a huge history in coffee. We can learn a little bit about that, but you're also sort of progressing and moving things forward in a lot of ways. So in varieties, processing methods, there's a lot of different variables there, right? Where are you, where are you getting information to make decisions on what you want to try this year? How do you decide, we're going to try and plant geisha, or how do you decide, it'd be a good idea to try a different processing method and separate something out? Like, where's that coming from for you? Do you have mentors? Is it just,
Well, that's when we are working, you know, here the farming community is small, so we are talking between us. So if somebody's trying something, you know, we are listening and trying to see if we could either replicate or improve and trying to work together. But it's very important to make some research. You know, when we look at bringing a new tree. Well, we're talking about geisha, and everybody's talking about geisha being one of the best coffee around, and it is a very good coffee, of course. We need to make sure that it will do well here. In general, most of the varietals will do well in Kona for multiple reasons. We have a good environment, you know, climate, environment, and also we have the means basically also to have those trees grow properly. You know, we are putting the proper fertilizer. We have the proper manpower to really make sure that those trees will grow. Now, does it mean that we have 100% success? No, we have some that will be average. That will happen. Unfortunately, that's the nature of the job. On top of that, you don't see a results within, I was in the finance industry. I was used to see everything within a second. Farming is completely different. You know, when we plant a tree, we need to wait 3-4 years before we start to see a result and taste the cup. So it's basically a game. It's a lot of research, talking to other regions also, see what they did. That's for the trees. For the processing, The way I see processing today is that you have a base of processing that everybody knows. We have the washed, wet fermented, we have the honeys, the naturals, and then you play with that. You need to be creative, and that's why every year we see somebody comes with something new, being on the yeast side or being changing a little bit the process, and that's basically the fun side of the processing.
Yeah, so I mean, it's something that you mentioned several times in that response that I love is, and I learned this about Kona, is you're really talking about 20 to 30, high level farmers in the community. Correct me if I'm wrong. So 20 to 30, call them high specialty farmers that are thinking on really the level, or producers that are thinking on the level that you're thinking and trying things, trial and error, this sort of thing. And it's a community that small that is pushing the entire Kona coffee scene forward. And that's just amazing to me that, it could be as few as 10 people or 20 people trying new things in their own operations and sharing that knowledge, just being open with it, having those conversations, and that's sort of moving things forward for the entire, what we would call Kona coffee, right?
Yeah, so there are about, as you say, about 20 larger farmers that, of course, just because of their volume, that means they will have, let's say, more visibility from the outside because they have enough coffee to do it. It's all comebacks. We cannot do those smaller micro batches all the time. It's time consuming. It takes coffee and everything. So we have our core business, which is a bigger volume, and then we have those smaller batches than we are doing. And here we are experimenting. Now, I don't want to exclude also the smaller farmers, because there are a lot, as we said at the beginning, a lot of new people actually that are buying those farms and want to experiment. So that's changing also a little bit comparing to 10 years ago or probably 15, where it was very, very traditional and even sometimes fight when we were planting new trees. We had some farmers telling us, "Oh no, you cannot do that. It's not Kona anymore. It's becoming a problem." Which again, or at least that's the way I was approaching it, was to really explain, well, look, Kona, it's a region. That's mean, yes, we have the traditional. What's important is the transparency behind. We need to be transparent with, our clients and to tell them exactly what's in the bag. Is it a geisha or is it a typica? Well, if you're not transparent, yes, that's a problem. But if you're clearly saying, yes, it's 100% Kona, but one is a typica, traditional Kona, and the other one is a geisha or another varietal, that's how it was processed. We should basically embrace actually those changes because that's how we can really move forward.
Yeah, I think and I do respect that about kind of the approach of, this happens in other communities too, where people find out that an SL34 is something different, right? Or it was called something different and now it's an SL34. And what I love about what you've done, and it seems the Kona coffee community has done, is it's call it what it is. I mean, there needs to be a level of transparency. But in that, you do lose, you maybe lose some of the competitive edge because you are fully transparent. I mean, would you describe, is there competition that exists among coffee producers in Kona in the same way, or do you find it to be just much more cooperative and generous in sharing?
Well, I think competition is always good. If it's a friendly competition, that's mean I personally like that because, well, that's how it's all moving forward and trying to enhance what we are doing on a daily basis. So I like actually this friendly competition. But overall, that means we're helping each other. We are not here to compete. The Kona coffee is a coffee that usually we can sell relatively, I don't want to say easily, because nothing's easy. But again, we have our clients that wants to have the traditional Kona because they know how it tastes, they know the quality, and so they want to stay with that. But again, this competition, I think that's what made the progress in the past few years. One farmer started to do a type of processing, then the other one said, "Oh, that's nice. Why don't I change something a little bit and do something different?" And that's how we work together. And personally, I like that.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that's a key to everyone's success in the area is you kind of need this. I kind of describe it as co-opetition almost, right? So,
Yeah.
there's sharing of ideas. There's an openness, there's a transparency to a certain extent, but you're also trying to strive forward, and you do want to be better than the next guy, and that's okay too. Your coffee, to have your coffee be at better quality on the table than somebody else, that's perfectly fine. So, yeah, in that processing method, before I jump out too far, in your processing methods, what are some of the things that you found to be the most important factors in making the best quality coffee possible in the processing segment of what you're doing?
Well, again, so few things here also. So you need to keep your when I say inventory, that means you need to keep again your transparency very important. Don't mix the beans. Very important. Keep your mill clean. That's also very important. Some mills are not as clean as they should, and so your results will not be good. You need to have proper machines. Processing for me starts with harvesting. Harvesting is for me part of the process. So the first step is to have good pickers. You need to have people, we train them when they come. They need to know to pick, the ripe cherries. You don't want actually to have a mix of, those yellow, green ones or pink ones. So that starts with that. Very important for the cup of coffee. How do you manage it? Again, good training, good team. So that's the first step. Yes, you can have machines to do those sorting. That's now that they exist, you have color sorters. But what do you do with the bad ones? Most of the processor worldwide will try to use them because if not, it's a waste. Probably, yeah. So it starts with the harvester. That's very important for me. Then at the mill, we have our processors. So we do all those different processes. As I say, we have the wet fermented, we have the honeys, we have the naturals, we do some yeast sometimes. We have the proper equipment. So as I say, we have all those tanks for fermentations, keep them clean, making sure that you also reproduce your process. I'm taking the example of the wet fermented that we're using a lot here. Don't ferment 12 hours one day and then 16 the next day because, well, that change actually the result. So you need actually to have, again, it comes back to the team. The person who's at the mill, at the wet mill, needs to follow those process and make sure that basically, every day we have the same. Same when you start on the drying side, you need to dry the same way. So consistency, we usually on our side pre-dry for about 3 days on the deck and then finish in dryers. Now, we are hearing recently that people dry twice. They dry, they put that back on the deck, and they're drying again. We didn't try that, but those things, before we integrate them, we need to test them. So again, quality comes to at the end to people. Follow the process. Keep your equipment clean and test everything. That means don't continue on something that doesn't work. If it doesn't work, try to see why it doesn't work, change it to make sure it's properly done. And then at the end, when it's dry, make sure you store it properly. Those are the things that are very important really for the quality of your coffee on the wet mill side.
I mean, you have such a kind of just in that a 2-minute masterclass on how to prepare a quality cup of coffee, and then the nuance in that is kind of lifelong lessons, right? I mean, you could learn several lessons a harvest season, but you can't learn all of them. So it's sort of this lifelong pursuit. Well, I mean, can you? I'm listening to you talk about this. It kind of brings me back a little bit to how the heck do you get into this? Well, I mean, I'm hearing the accent. Your French accent, last name is Polish. You are in the United States of America and Hawaii, producing coffee. All of these things don't line up. I don't know if there's another Jean on, in Kona.
Oh.
But I'd love, yeah. I mean, give us the brief history of kind of Jean getting into coffee, and
Right.
how you leapt into kind of being
Yeah.
this professional coffee
So
producer.
Yeah, so I'm an engineer, technology engineer, so doing software, hardware. Started in France to work in the finance industry, broker dealers, mainly in futures and options. So I knew coffee on the completely different side, on the trading side. But in technology, started in France, then move around the world. So working for broker dealers, we've spent time with my wife Danielle in Singapore, in the US, of course, in Chicago because of of all those grain markets there. Then moved to India for about 3 years, also in the software industry. Then came back to the US. And at one point, after 25 years of working in this industry, I had enough. It's 24/7 and it's really, really fast paced. When you trade worldwide, it's basically 20, as I say, 24/7. You only have one day, because the markets are open all the time. You only have one day off. It's usually Saturday, between Saturday and Sunday. And that's it. So I had enough of the trading desks environment, electronic trading and so on. And so I was looking at, okay, what could I do? I wasn't that young anymore and didn't want to go to school. So I say, what can I learn by myself, that I feel I'm capable of doing? So looking around, farming was something that I always liked. My parents had a farm a long time ago. So I liked farming, and so I was looking what we could do, and we also liked Hawaii, not only because of Hawaii, but because of the environment we see here with people. So we decided to buy a small farm, the 6-acre farm at the beginning. And then how it went is that, to be honest, when we came, we were unsure if we really wanted to farm or if it was, semi-retirement. But when we started working on the farm, we saw that it is very hard work. That in coffee is not an easy job, and it's not something we can replant every year. So it's really like non-stop. So we had to make a decision. Either we decided to just keep the 6 acres and just enjoy ourselves, or try to see what we can do with it. So we started to say, let's make it a business, basically. 6-acre farm, you cannot really have a true business at the end. Make some good profit and live out of it. It's very difficult to do. So we say, look, we need to grow. So we started to buy, another 20 acres, another one, and put the plan to start growing, as I say, doing this crop share program with other farms. So the benefit of that is that we can help other farmers. And at the same time, for us, we can also look at growing the Kona coffee worldwide. What we're trying to do is to put our brand as much as possible, all over the world. Our strategy is to sell roasted as much as possible. So really to do farm to cup. It is a process that, we are building. We've started with the small farm, bigger farm, processing, roasting, coffee shop now. So we're really trying to cover all the aspects of the coffee industry.
Was it your own business in your prior career, your pre-coffee career,
No.
or you were working for someone? So, I mean, was there also this element where you just had to learn how to kind of run your own business in the midst of kind of learning coffee production? I guess the question is, what lessons did you carry from your old life into this new life that really helped you be successful as a coffee producer?
Yeah. So my parents had small businesses. So when I was young, I was seeing what they were doing. But, working in the finance industry, that's when we work with numbers a lot. So I would say that's a big plus when you run your own business. The big difference is that, when I was working on Wall Street, we had huge budgets. And at the end, I think you're an employee or you're working with those budgets, but they are not your direct money. The big difference is that when you have your own business, it's coming from your pocket. So you need to be very careful at everything. But I would say with my background, that's, I like efficiency, on everything, all aspects, being on the field, processing, but also on the business side, that's very important. At the end, the way I see it, and I'm trying to explain that to every farmer I talk to, is that we're running a business. Yes, we are doing all those, new methods, new trees and so on. But if we cannot be profitable, basically what's happening? The trees start to be weak because we don't have basically enough money to, to fertilize them, to maintain them. We cannot pay our guys enough. And so at the end, if we are not looking at the business side, almost, I would say first, it's a balance, of course. But if we cannot be successful on the business side, the farm will never be successful. That's the way I see it. It's very important. So again, I would say lucky with my background is that numbers are relatively easy for me, because that's what I did before. So it helped me a lot to always be very organized, plan everything in advance and making sure we know where we're going. Does it mean that everything's successful? No. I mean, it's like everything. You try something, it doesn't work, but you try to catch it before it's too late. So that's the way it should work.
Yeah, I mean, and I think the other thing that I think came out of, if I'm hearing all the work you put in come out of your past career, I have to guess would be kind of this idea of work ethic in this. I mean, you just worked your butt off in your last career. Obviously, you're passionate about what you're doing now. So hopefully, it sounds like you're working really hard currently, but hopefully enjoy it a little bit more. I mean, any lessons to be learning of just kind of showing up and working 6-7 days a week for a long career and then kind of going into what you did and then being a little bit too bored to leave it alone and just have it be retirement farm for 6 acres?
Well, I think it's my personality is that I could not retire. That means as of now, I'm still I still have a lot of energy basically to work. But when we came to coffee, I think it's important that you need to love what you're doing. We need to produce the best quality of coffee possible. That's basically what we are doing all day long. And the whole team, when we're recruiting, we have a team that's very stable. They like to work with us. That's something also probably from my previous career. I had large teams, and that's very important. We are working all together. I'm not the boss. It's an open environment. Everybody brings ideas. And that's the way it should work. I don't know everything. They know a few other things. I'm also of the older generation. Very important to understand how the young generation works. How do you do that? By having young people working for you. Very important. We have staff that are younger that we train on one side, but they're teaching us also a lot. So the team is also very important. So again, it's a combination of all this. When you create a business, you need good people. You need to basically really, because that's almost the most important, is to have the best product that you can produce. And of course, behind, as I say, be very organized and efficient. That's very important.
You obviously intertwined in this whole processing and picking. When I talk to producers, they often bring up how great their team is because it just takes people to make coffee happen. It's one of the beautiful things about it. It's different than, your brokering and trading that you've done in the past, where so much of that is just sort of data being passed around, right? This is a physical product that gets produced and it goes through people's hands to get to the quality that you are. I would be curious about, when people ask you for advice, or if people ask you for advice on how to build a great team and manage a great team, what are kind of your core tenets around, building and managing a team? Like what's kind of the foundation of that allows you to do that well?
Yeah, the team is very important. Again, you cannot, especially on a larger farm, you cannot work alone. That doesn't work. It's very heavy work. So you need to have people that are willing to spend the time. But you need a great team also because of the quality you want at the end, and you want to create this environment. So as I was mentioning, I was alluding to that. An open environment. You need to create an environment where people feel comfortable. So it goes both ways. Of course, you need to have good people, but you also need to give them back by creating this environment where they feel comfortable, where they want to come every day and to work. it's a combination of multiple things. It's basically to be the way I work is that I'm sometimes a little bit hands-on, so they see that I'm here for them when they are in needs. We're always here for them, for everything. Plus, we are learning together. We're always trying to do something new, so it's not like boring doing the same things every day. We're trying, to bring new things on. Being processing, farming, or whatever, but we're trying together to come with new ideas. It's like a small family all together. We are working this way. We are a small business. We have about 10 people working, plus the harvesting, of course, with more people. But it's very important to create this environment where they feel very comfortable to work.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm going to lean on this next. Another thought came to mind when you were relaying your story about your past life that I'd be just curious on before I kind of jump to other things. So especially coffee, I'm sure you've had this thought in the past. Specialty coffee is really almost its own asset class or multiple different asset classes, right? But people generally struggle to price it, or they're trying to kind of price it based on what they've done in the past or what they're thinking in the future or what their neighbors say or what just simply what big buyers are willing to pay. I know Kona's got a unique situation, but what do you think specialty coffee could learn from your kind of broker trader background? Like what would you hope to bring forward? Or would you say, hey, we should leave all that behind and we should think about this in a completely different way?
Well, so as you say, Kona is a little bit special. Huh? It's we are pricing it a little bit differently. But my approach, the first step is to know how much does it cost to produce a pound or a kilo of coffee. That's very important for the farmer. Again, numbers are important. If you don't know that, you can't price your product because it's a guess at the end. So you need to know your numbers, and then from there, you need to start seeing based on volume where you want to be in terms of your profit. Now, it's easy to say, again, for us here in Kona, because as I say, we are a little bit probably the only regions in the world to be in this situation. It's much more difficult if you're producing coffee and selling it on the sea market, because, well, then you're entering in speculation, so it's completely different because then it's trading. We are not trading. We are producer, we have our coffee, we're selling. So it's more or less a one-on-one transaction. When you're starting to come to a market, you have a lot of players on the market, people that are buying, selling, that don't even see the coffee, so it's a completely different beast when you work this way. You have much less control, at least in terms of when you're the farmer.
So is Kona coffee basically at this point priced at kind of a cost plus model? It costs this much to produce it, so we're going to price it at this. If the cost increases, then we're going to increase the price to this. Is that sort of how Kona pricing?
Well, yeah, it's a combination of few things. So yeah, for me, I like the cost plus because, well, I know that I have some profit, and as I say, if we're not making profit, we cannot really make sure that everybody's paid, that the farm is maintained properly. But it's also historically we need to look at the price, and if we see a competitor that can sell his coffee at a pound of roasted at 60 or 70, well, then it means that it's a number that maybe we can reach. Now it varies from year to year. When was it? 4 years ago, we had the coffee leaf rust. The production in Kona dropped by a good 30%. So there was less coffee on the market. So the price went up. So it's a combination. You need to know your product and your environment overall, to price your coffee. Then I know for us, we're always trying to make the coffee, because there is another aspect, at least for us, Hala Tree, is that we want to make our coffee available to as many people as possible. So price it too high, yes, you can, but then you don't have the same clientele anymore. Specialty coffee is always shown as being special again, but you also want people to taste this specialty coffee. If not, it's really reserved to an elite. And then the others can barely afford it, especially with the Kona, which is very high. So we're always trying to find a balance and be, in an average price or around that, at least for our main production. Then we have those micro lots or more, smaller lots that we do that are really different for whatever reason, different, usually different processing. And those ones, that's completely different, of course.
Yeah, why? I mean, I'd be curious, just because I do hear this from a lot of coffee producers as well, but why not just price it as high as you possibly can and sell it to the highest bidder sort of thing? Why kind of pick an average price and take the approach of everyone should have the chance to enjoy Kona coffee? I mean, why is that important?
For me, at least, I want to be fair. So I think at one point it's becoming just, you're just looking at the profit side and you're not looking at being fair also with your customers. So I'm always trying to be, where it's fair for everybody. It's coming back to a little bit transparency, as much as we're transparent with our coffee, we're also trying to be fair with our pricing. But that's a choice. That means some other farmers will decide to go as high as they can. Do they have a better coffee? Not necessarily.
That's just a better price.
Yeah.
Depends. And so, and in that trading and speculation, so you mentioned in the commodity market, if you get into that game, there is an element of speculation. There's obviously then hedging that comes into play that people are going to need to take advantage of in order to protect themselves. These kinds of things come up. I find that a lot of specialty coffee producers, a lot of people in specialty coffee in general, paint the commodity market as kind of the villain of the industry. You worked in the bowels of that functioning system for your entire, almost your entire career, or your entire career pre-coffee. What can you tell people about? Is it the villain people talk about? Are there any positives to it that we need to be aware of? How do you kind of parse that past life with your current life and how people talk about it?
So again, that's been for us. We are not in this commodity market. So again, we are really a niche on the side. So it's something we can't really compare. It's difficult to compare. Now, on the commodity market, let's not forget that all those futures contracts were created for farmers at the beginning. It's just that they've evolved so much with so much speculation around that, of course, the price are varying, and I hear a lot as of now, those prices are going up and down and so on. But that's speculation. Usually the farmer, when he sells his contract, he sold it. So the speculation behind should not be important, other than maybe to regret, I sold it at, I sold it at 3 and now it's 4. Oh, I lost $1. Yes, true. But on the other side, you sold it at 3 and you had a guarantee. If it was down, you had your contract. So again, it's a question of understanding how those markets work. Is the speculation bad? That's an opinion. But to take that as a reference, I think the specialty coffee should not take the commodity market as a reference. That means you should have your relationship with your client. If the farmer sells in the specialty coffee, let's assume that there would be a very small contract of 5 pounds or 10 pounds instead of those big amounts. Then you don't have the relationship to the final buyers most of the time. And so how can you sell your coffee really? How can you really explain why your coffee is exceptional? You cannot. You need to go actually to all those intermediate parts that they will do the sale for you. And usually they will not do a job as good as the farmer. So again, I'm simplifying because it's not that simple to have those relationships one-on-one, depending where you are in the world. We are very, I think we have a lot of privilege being in the US and having this luxury to work with this organization, environment, which is not the case everywhere in the world. So it's not easy. It's not easy to fix, but I don't think specialty should follow the C market base price.
Yeah, I mean, what you said there, I think, is really important, which is part of the struggle tying it to the commodity market price, right? It's up to the producer to differentiate, to market their product, to sell their product, to promote, right? And And within specialty coffee, I mean, you could categorize it in 1,000 different ways, right? But you're not going to come up with all these different categories, all these different asset classes, and it's going to function like the commodity market necessarily. But I do think what you said is also important, which is the reason the commodity market originally existed with these future contracts. They had a purpose, and the purpose was partially, as with all trade, there's a beneficial trade with trade. There's beneficial relationship for both parties, right? So the farmer gets a futures contract, so they get something that has some sort of value and some sort of liquidity to it, pre-producing, and the buyer gets access to a guaranteed price sometime in the future to receive that product, and so they have a set supply and a set price of cost of goods sold for whatever they're doing with the product, right? And that all sort of connects and makes sense. I think where we sometimes get lost in specialty coffee is we tend to kind of oversimplify, focus on the speculation portion of the market, and then villainize the rest and say, well, we don't want any part of that. It's like, well, actually, Ford's contracts could be a beneficial thing in specialty coffee. Someone purchasing coffee from a producer or committing to purchase coffee from a producer at some future date, because the coffee producer can take that contract, they can get financing, they can get insurance, they could get cash flow, right? Potentially, if those systems exist.
Yeah, and I will take a good example actually that we have. So, we're producing naturals, but naturals are sometimes a little bit more, not more difficult to sell, but in terms of volume, that's what we're producing. I don't want to overproduce my naturals because they are a little bit more difficult to sell. I need to have the client basically to do it. So it's a very good example because I'm trying basically to get clients that are committing, to buy a certain volume for next season, because then it protects everybody. It protects the client because, well, he knows he will have his coffee, but it's also helping me. So I'm not overproducing and then getting some coffee that I don't know where to sell. So, it's a little bit like a small future contract, very simplified, but again, that's more or less how it should work for the farmer if they want to protect themselves.
Yeah. I look at it a little bit. I mean, this is obviously very oversimplified and extreme, but it's almost like a restaurant producing orders before they get the orders in, right? It's like, I'm going to put all this food up on this hot bar, and then I'm going to hope that people order the right things, and so I can sell out of this food efficiently. It's like, well, you could also just get the tickets in, and then cook the food to order as well. And I think there's probably a percentage that you need to do of both, right? You said 60% of your farm is Typica. Maybe that you can be a little bit more speculative on and produce that in a manner where there will be a buyer at a set price, even if we overproduce or underproduce a little bit. But on your naturals, you absolutely do not want to do that because they might be higher margin, but they're certainly higher cost. And so speculating in that could tank your entire business, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So again, that's very important also to manage. Again, as a farmer, you're doing a little bit of everything, and that's the I would say the sales part, that you have at the end of the chain. That's very important also.
Absolutely. Okay, I'm going to change gears a little bit and talk about this auction you have coming up. So this is a first of its kind auction. I think I mean, you need to educate me on this because I don't recall a private auction in Hawaii. Certainly not in the last 5 to 10 years, but maybe even longer than that. It might be the first one of its kind. But tell us about this auction. Tell us, why you wanted to do it, why you wanted to be the first.
All right. So, I don't know if there were auctions before. Maybe, as you said, a long time ago, but I didn't hear about any auctions, or at least a private auction, because there was a Kona, I think, in Dubai that was sold also at the auction a few months ago. But so why we were looking at that since sometimes. Just for the stories, we've stopped doing competitions a few years ago. For multiple reasons. That's been, again, we decided that at the end we can, let's say we can highlight our coffee in better ways than just competitions, and putting a score that at the end, when you look at a score, you look at a 90.1 or 90 or 90, does it really make a difference in terms of the quality of the cup? I'm not really sure of that because we know how it's a little bit subjective. So I like the auction because the auction is not subjective. It's basically, the coffee is tasted by some potential buyers, and they decide what they like and they don't like. So the principle itself is really more concrete than just a score. So I like I like the auction. I like also the auction because we can so for this auction we have 9 coffees that we will be highlighting. They are smaller batches, but they are also production batches. So the way I approach the auction is to really showcase what we can do as a farm. So we have our very special batches that we believe, at least on our side, that are very good. Or at least very different. And, as of now, it's not only how good they are, but how different they can be. And we have some production lots also within the auctions to really showcase everything. So why we wanted to be the first? It's not really that we wanted to be the first. It just happened this way. We were thinking about it and we said, look, let's just do it. We have enough coffee this year to do it. And so let's just do the auction. So we are at the guinea pig here for Kona. We'll see how it works, but I like the principle of the auction. So we just decided, let's go, and we want to showcase our coffee. We hope that people will like it. We'll see what we can do, and so then we can continue next year with additional batches. Our approach to those batches, how we do them. When we do those micro batches or smaller batches, they are not all successful. That means it's really a trial and error. So we cannot do them all year long. We usually do them at the peak of the season. So again, October, November. And we just decide, we talk about it within the team, what could we do different, and something to try. So, we have different methods, of course. That's relatively easy. We all know how it works. We have some honeys, we have some naturals, easy. And then we have the micro batch. The micro batches, as of now, very often are happening with yeast. Now, yeast is complicated because there are no recipes saying, oh, take this yeast and that will be very good. So how do we approach it? I like wine also. So basically, I'm looking at the wine yeast. I'm looking at what results it does in wine, but it doesn't mean that we'll have the same results for coffee. So we just choose few yeast every year and we do our test. We usually try to do our test again in an organized way. So we usually do it with a washed, with a honey and a natural, and we see what works. We try about 3 different yeast every year. And if we have a good one from the previous year, we keep it in production. So we try to do a little bit higher production. Now, it's not very simple to do a higher production from a small lot to a big one. So yes, we produce a little bit more on those production, but again, not like huge quantity. It's just that, fermentation is complex. You do it in a 100 pounds batch or you do it in a 5,000, you have a completely different result.
Yeah, on that yeast portion, so you mentioned wine and your love of wine. It's very French of you, and I appreciate that. Are you mainly using wine yeast that's been isolated to try these products? Has that been kind of your safest source of yeast, or have you tried other yeast too?
So as of now, that's what we've tried. We heard about other yeast that people are trying and have good results. So probably this year we'll try some others. But so far, that's all we did.
And it sounds like your goal of the auction is kind of a taste the farm, like the whole farm experience, right? So production lots all the way up to each one of your varieties, and then some unique processing methods in there. Anything else we need to know about yeast, not just yeast production, but is it going to be naturals, honeys, wash? Is it all of it that you're trying to get in there?
Well, so I can prepare, so maybe we see that. So again, we have our sample box. So again, you can see it here.
Beautiful, yeah.
That's available. It's all coming. So again, that's been with all the descriptions and the quantities we have available. In each box you have this. So as I say, this year we want to showcase our coffee. So what we have, I'm not sure or if not, I'll read it. And anyway, it's on the website also, so you can see all our lots. But so we've tried to showcase one yeast. It's called Tango. It's basically a yeast used for Malbec wine usually. We had very good results with it. And so we've used a lot of red bourbon. So again, we're trying to be organized when we do our lots. So this year we focused a lot on the red bourbon and the Tango. So you have all the different methods. So you have the red bourbon, Tango natural, Tango honey, Tango washed. So again, you can really taste the difference. Then we've tried to enter more to our smaller batches because we don't have that many trees for those ones. So we have still the red bourbon, we have the geisha, the SL34, and the Maragogipe. Those ones, we have some naturals, and the rest will be wet fermented. Like geisha, SL34, Maragogipe will be wet fermented. Those are our production lots. Not huge quantity, but production lots and very good coffee. And then we have also our Typica naturals, because we know that a lot of people like the naturals. So we have the Typica naturals to showcase really, the traditional Kona. The Typica is the traditional one. So I think it makes sense to have at least one to show what can be done with it. And we also have some pink bourbon. So that's what we will be showcasing this year.
Amazing. Yeah. Well, I can't wait to try these coffees. One. So I hope I get to do that. And the sample set looks beautiful. Last question for you after these auctions, after this auction stream is just something I like to ask producers is what question, if you're going to ask advice or had one question for another coffee producer, what question comes to mind that we should be thinking about or that I could ask the next coffee producer that comes on this podcast? Like what challenges are you facing that kind of, lead you to a question that you think would help you in your daily operation, or you just be curious to know about?
Oh, so that's a tough one. I didn't think about that one. So I'm trying to think. Well, so again, if I'm talking to another producer, if we have a conversation, that it would be really to exchange a little bit what we are doing and to try to, I would ask, what do you think you're doing the better than anybody else, if possible, because then I can learn something out of it. And I think it's important when we have those conversations between farmers, that, I'm transparent and I have no problem to give any information to others. I'm basically volunteering the information more than anything else, because I'm happy if another farmer is successful and can basically use what I'm doing. So the question would be really, what do you think you do, again, the best on your farm that could help me on my farm? What do you do differently that could help me?
That's such a good question. I will take that with me. It's a great question. What do you think you're doing better than everyone else? It's a really good and pertinent one. And I think that information would, it really cuts to the core of what we're sharing on some of this. I love it. Well, thank you so much, John. Yeah. So John, I just appreciate you sharing your story, and being on this podcast with me. Just everything from, French sort of farm family to trading, brokering, discovering Hawaii, falling in love with Hawaii, falling in love with Kona coffee, and then sort of this second life, this second career you've created for yourself. And I'm really excited that we get to be a part of this auction with you as kind of the auction host for Hala Tree. And so, again, correct me if I'm wrong, but the auction is on July 7th. Correct. You can register.
It starts on July 7th. Yes.
Perfect. So I got that right. You'd have to correct me quickly if I hadn't. So July 7th, auction sample sets seem to be on sale. You can register at M-Cultivo.com. You can find Hala Tree there. They will have their own segment, their own landing page for it, which has a lot more information on John, his great operation, Hala Tree, all the work they've got that's gone into this. And I can't wait to taste these coffees. and the representation in Kona coffee. I am so excited about the new life that you've brought to Kona coffee and the work that the Kona coffee community is doing to bring it to the world stage, because it deserves to be there. So just thank you so much for being here, and thank you so much for all you do for specialty coffee.
Well, thank you for having me again. That's been, it's important for us. We're representing the Kona region. We are doing that for us, but not only. I think it's important that the region is up there. That's been because we are here on the specialty side. That's been, we are all producing good coffees. That's been not only Hala Tree, really the whole regions. You have very good farmers, very hard worker. We all want to be there. We want to show that we have one of the best coffee in the world. That's important.
Beautiful.
So,
well, thanks, John. And we will, we'll see you on July 7th for the Hala Tree auction. And just thank you so much again.
All right. Very excited. Thank you.